All right, Larry Krueger here with the Krueg Show podcast post-game edition, except we are not in the post-game just yet. We are still in the ninth inning of the game from Scottsdale because the Giants relief pitcher here is having a hard time getting out of the top of the ninth inning. So it is 13-4 Brewers, and we just watched Luis Matos make an incredible catch in center field at Scottsdale Stadium, where it gets dark in the outfield alleys. But welcome to the Krug Show postgame edition, and we're going to have the Giants beat writer with us. He's a first year beat writer. His name's Evan Wiebeck, and he's going to join us after as soon as the game concludes. The Giants still have to hit in the bottom of the ninth inning, but it's 13-4 Milwaukee in Scottsdale Stadium tonight. Giants came in with a 1-2 record. The Brewers were 2-0. So this is Cactus League game number 4 for the Giants. 4 of 17, by the way, a 17-game Cactus League schedule, and then it's into the regular season. And the game plan for us is we are going to do a lot of post games. So we're going to be doing some post games on YouTube. And we're going to be talking to baseball people like Ned Coletti and others, people and like guys like the Giants beat writer, Evan Wiebeck, who will join us today. And we'll talk all things Giants. We got a bunch of questions to throw his way. And then, of course, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from all of you. You know, one of my favorite things to do when I was at KMBR was the post game. I came to KMBR in 1997. And at the time, I think Fitz might have been doing the nighttime show. And they said, Fitz is only going to do the 7 to 10. So post-game Giants is wide open, and we want someone to host it. We'd like you to host it. And Luis Matos has just made another catch to end the top of the ninth inning in deep center field. So the Giants have their 3 outs to go, and then we officially kick off the Krug Show post-game. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to, in the comments section here, of course, a lot of people lined up here, and we'll get to all of your comments. And a lot of people are already starting to weigh in. We'll just give you an idea, a taste of it. It should be fun. And, that was us writing that in there. But then, there's people saying, hey, Krug, what's up? Jay Hutch says you're close to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. I saw that right before the show. We've only been doing this for about a week, but we are closing in on 2,000 subscribers, and we already have 3 sponsors signed up for the season ahead. So we are fired up, and I'll say it right here for all of you. If you're one of these people that was a fan of mine at KMBR or on Sirius XM, or when I did my stuff at KGO, or just know me and you want to be helpful to the show, what's the first way you can be helpful? Well, you can subscribe. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel, and it's free to subscribe. And it will just when you hit that subscribe button, all that really means is every time we go live, you'll get an alert on YouTube, so you can find us. And we're going to do stuff throughout the day. Sometimes it'll be obviously the post games are going to be in the evenings, but we'll do some stuff in the earlier parts of the day as well. So hit subscribe, and it will just alert you when we're going to be on. So that is one way you can help the show. Now, if you want to help the show more than that, you're like, that's not enough for me, I want to do more. You're more than welcome, I should say, to follow me on Twitter at SportsLarryK. I got rid of the NBR, so now it's just at SportsLarryK. Follow me, and then if you'd like to be a sponsor, because many of the people that we've already talked to about being sponsors for this show are just listeners. They were either, KMBR listeners, Sirius XM listeners, people that have just, fans or whatever. And, they've reached out and a number of different businesses that have reached out. And if you have a business and you'd like to sponsor our show, you're more than welcome to send me a direct message, and me or my executive producer, Len Dempsey, we'll get back to you, probably both of us, and we'll talk about your business and see if there's any way that, by sponsoring our show, we can help grow your business and make you money. So in one of those win-win settings for sure. So if you want to support the show one way, you can subscribe. If you want to support the show by being a sponsor, or if you know somebody who would like to sponsor the show, feel free to just DM me on Twitter, leave me your information. I'll get back to you. We'll exchange some information, and then eventually I'll just give you a call, and we'll I'll send you a price list, and we'll talk over all the different options if you would like to be a sponsor. And look at Len in the background there. Follow me on Twitter at SportsLarryK. So those are the two ways that you can help the show. And then once we have sponsors, and as you see me today, I am wearing one of our sponsors' t-shirts, Casera's Italian Suits in Dublin. Great guys. And they are one of the sponsors of the Krueg Show. And so, we definitely want you to, support our sponsors. So our good friend Tony Casera, they're at 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin. And we're going to have merchandise as well. We're going to have some Krueg Show t-shirts. And if you want, you can order them. You'll be able to order them online. Or if you prefer, you want to buy them in person, you could show up at Casera's in Dublin, and they will stock them there. That's right. The Krueg Show t-shirts will be available at Casera's in Dublin. So I'm really excited. One of my favorite things to do when I first got to KMBR was to do Giants post game. I remember Gary used to say, "Oh, nobody's better after the Giants lose than Krueg," and I think what he meant was Krug's got a bad temper and he lets it all loose on the post game. But in reality, the beautiful part about not doing this on the flagship station of the team is that you can be that much more honest and direct. Because I don't work for the team, and I don't work for the team's flagship station, so I can kind of say whatever I want. And we will. You know me, I don't pull any punches, and we're not going to crucify them after a Cactus League game in early March. But we're gonna the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, we're gonna break it all down throughout the season on these post games, and we're gonna have a lot of baseball insiders. Beat writers, players, executives. Like to get Farhan himself on one of these shows in the post game, and he can answer some of the questions from you guys all, because you guys are the fans, and that really is, that's really, good organizations, whether it be sports or in any walk of life, any business, they respond to their customers, and you're their customers. So, we're going to get right into it. One of the things that has kind of been a theme of this first, week or so that we've been doing these shows is kind of the rock and the hard place that I'm caught between on the Giants right now. Giants have just hit into a double play, so there's now 2 outs in the 9th inning. So we are now 1 out away from officially having the first post-game show kicking off on YouTube with the Krueg Show. And we'll have our guest in here as well, and you can ask him questions. I'll pepper him with a bunch of questions as well, and we'll talk all things Giants baseball. But one of my favorite things is to get people's reaction after the game and hear, and talk about the team. And one of the themes of the first week was, it's like, as a Giants fan, I think everybody wants to give Farhan a wide berth to do whatever he's going to do to build this team, because we're all convinced that he's a hell of a GM. And if you're not at this point, I mean, seriously, if you're not on the Farhan bandwagon at this point, what are you waiting for, right? I mean, Vegas had them last year, and I don't remember the exact over/under. If anybody does, feel free to let us know. Big 3-run bomb or 2-run bomb for somebody. Looks like maybe Grant McCray, a guy wearing number 88. I believe that's Grant McCray. He was pretty fast. Obviously, he's got some pop too. That was a nice little shot. Grant McCray just hit a 2-run shot out to left. So 13-4 is now 13-6, and the Giants are down to their last out in this game. But one of the dilemmas is, on one hand, I just totally believe in Farhan. I was so impressed with how he took last year's team and made, he maximized the 40-man roster. He brought guys up, he sent guys down. I mean, they just hit almost every right button last year. And they took a situation where the Giants were, I think Vegas had them at 79.5 or 81.5. By most accounts, they were going to be a 500 baseball team. and they won 107 games. I mean, think about that for a second. They won 107 games. This franchise has been around for 139 years, and that is the most that they have ever won in a single season. And they did it in a year, not where they were picked to win the division. They did it in a year where they were picked to be basically a 500 club, and yet they won 107 games, and they won the National League West over a truly great, dominant Dodger team. In April, I think we all looked at the Giants in the NL West and said, you know what? It's the Dodgers and it's the Padres, and if everything breaks right for the Giants, so 13-6 is the final from Scottsdale. 13-6, Brewers get the win over the Giants. Giants fall to 1-3 in the Cactus League. So we'll visit with Evan Wiebeck here in just a few minutes. But the Giants won 107. They were picked universally to finish third. They had the same over-under total as the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks, I think, lost 100. So the Giants won 107 in a division that had the Dodgers, the Padres. It's never easy to win in Denver for the Giants. It's been a house of horrors for years. So in this division, in a year where the Dodgers and Padres were supposed to be the class of the National League, the Giants wind up winning the division, winning at 107. And it was amazing to watch. It really was. I mean, not only did, the defense was incredibly bolstered by the analytics. The Giants, how many times as a Giant fan last year did you watch a ball just absolutely ripped, but it was right at Darren Ruff, or it was right at Lamont Wade, or it was right at Brandon Crawford, or it was, right at Brandon Belt? That's the Giants analytics going from the office to the field. So that's what's going on there. So defensively, their analytics department really helped their defense. Then pitching wise, they built themselves a very deep staff, both in the pen and in the bullpen. Very deep staff, and they look almost as deep this year. And then offensively, Crawford bounced back, Belt bounced back, Longoria bounced back. If you remember 2 years ago, these guys were all about to be put out to pasture. Like, these guys can't help us, they're done. And they all bounced back with somewhat career-type years. Brandon Belt almost had a career year. I think Crawford last year was the best I've ever seen Crawford as far as a hitter. He was terrific, absolutely terrific. So, their veterans bounced back. They found some guys who could help along the way. They had an incredibly deep pitching staff, and their defense was aided by the fact that their analytics department had their defenders playing in the right spot day after day after day. And so they won 107. So on one hand, they won 107, so they were predicted to win 81. So you got to think, man, Farhan's a freaking genius. And then you look at this year's roster and this year's lineup, and I know Duggar. I mean, I'll just give you an idea of tonight's lineup. Tonight's lineup had Wade, Slater, Duggar, 1, 2, 3. So you got Steven Duggar, who, he's a defensive guy. He hit third in the Giant lineup. I mean, there's no lineup in the big leagues that Steven Duggar would hit third in. Ruff hit fourth tonight. Casale hit 5. So your 3, 4, 5 in today's game was Duggar, Ruff, and Casale, followed by Blandino, Wyatt Matthewson, a guy named Gamboa, and a prospect named Tyler Fitzgerald rounding out the lineup. So they lose Posey. They let Chris Bryant go. They did bring in Jock Peterson, but they don't have the kind of lineup that makes you think that they're going to score a lot of runs. And that's a concern. So, like, on one hand, man, just kind of defer to Farhan and cross your fingers because everything's going to work out just fine. On the other hand, it doesn't look that great on paper. It really doesn't. And so I'm like kind of trying to come to grips with, where am I on the Giants right now? Am I, glass half full and you know what, Farhan will figure it out? Or am I the glass half empty guy and, the sky's fallen and this lineup is crap? So, and won't measure up to LA's monster lineup. So somewhere in between there is where I'm going to sit. I think because it is March the 21st and there's still a whole slew of free agents yet to be signed. I don't know if they'll come here, but they're out there in the marketplace. There's still trades that could potentially be consummated. So, and I guess, and I have such respect for Farhan's ability to roster build that I'm not going to jump him here on or on March the 21st. I would say my message would be give it a little time. Give it a little time. Let's see what this roster looks like on opening day. I won't say let's see what this roster looks like in July, but let's see what this roster looks like on opening day. Let's see if he can tinker a little bit. Let's see if he's going to make a trade and part with some of his better prospects to get a blue chip type player in here. The one I was suggesting on Twitter was Jose Ramirez. One, I just can't even believe Ramirez is available, period, because he's that good of a baseball player. But he's got a couple years of control left. Guardians are talking about trading him. If I could I don't want to trade prospects, but if I could get Jose Ramirez and you want Hunter Bishop, I'm listening. You want Grant McCray, who just hit one out. I'm listening. I'll say there's a few guys I don't want to move. I don't want to move Luis Matos. You saw him today, but I mean, I'm a huge Matos fan. He's got power, he's got speed, he can play center field, he's got lightning in his wrists. He just really looks like a player. So Matos would be a keeper in my mind. But even Marco Luciano, as much as I love Marco Luciano, and he looks great. Marco Luciano he's lean, he's got bat speed, he's an Adonis. I mean, he's going to play shortstop. As much as I like Luciano, he's a prospect, and it might happen, but it might not. And so if I could get like a Jose Martinez, if I could get a Martinez out of Cleveland, if I could get a blue chip hitter that could hit 3, 4, 5, I'd be interested. I don't want to move all these guys, but I would move one or two just because prospects. Jesse Foppert, once upon a time, as you guys all know, at one point in time, Jesse Foppert, I remember talking to Ned Coletti. What do you think of Jesse Foppert? He's taking our breath away. It's like, what? He's nowhere. He's literally nowhere. He's not in baseball anymore. So that's kind of the way it works, right? It's like you got a hot prospect, Jerome Williams, Kurt Ainsworth, you name it. Giants fans could name hot prospects for the last 20 years that were great in rookie league, tore up maybe even the Cal League, got to Double-A and just evaporated, just totally disappeared. So I used to be a total prospect guy, but after years and years and years of seeing, a number of prospects kind of fade away when they get to Double-A, or maybe, they look like they're stars at Double-A, maybe they get to Triple-A and all of a sudden they're a utility guy, or there's some tool that they had in the minors that they just no longer have in the majors. I get it. That there's a huge step up, and there's guys that just can't make that step. And so if there's a player out there that absolutely is a star type player, the Giants could get him for a top prospect, I personally would say go for it. Go for it if you can. But, this is going to be a very interesting year for the Giants. And, one of the things that really stood out to me is, the question that they were talking about, many people were talking about, I heard it a little earlier today in the broadcast, was last year a fluke? And I just don't think that you can call a 107 win season a fluke. And I don't believe it was a fluke. But there could be a little bit of comeback to reality this year. Last year could have been legitimate and not fluky in the slightest, and still they're not going to win 100 this year. It doesn't. If they win 85 or 90 games this year, that doesn't prove that last year was a fluke. Last year things came together. Buster and Casale and you just name it. The best we've ever seen of Brandon Belt. It all kind of came together, and this team hit stride, and then they just kept winning and winning and winning. And when the Dodgers looked like they were going to run them over down the stretch, no, Giants held them off down the stretch, and it was impressive. So, without any further ado, let's welcome in our tonight's guest. It's Evan Wiebeck, who covers the Giants now for the San Jose Mercury News, and he joins us from Scottsdale Stadium, right behind me there, in the press box. What's up, Evan? How are you?
Pretty good, Larry. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here on this inaugural postgame show for living Bay Area legend Larry Krueger. Come on,
I don't
an
know about
honor.
that. I don't know about that. Well, okay, why don't we just get right into it? You are in your first year covering the Giants. Before we get into the Giants, and a bunch of questions I have for you, and some of the people in the comments are going to have some questions as well. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about Evan Wiebeck and where you come from and what your history is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to doing this in print too. I'm gonna have a kind of an introductory mailbag coming up this week, and hopefully all of our readers will get to know me pretty well in that. But covering the Giants is none less than a dream come true for me. I grew up a baseball fan, playing baseball. My earliest memories are that 2001 Mariners team. Larry, you'll learn I'm a Seattleite and born and bred in the futility of Seattle sports. So you'll find my skepticism and cynicism comes through in my coverage here.
But that was a great team. How many wins for the 01 Mariners?
116 wins, made the playoffs.
Wow.
Haven't been back since. That's a playoff drought that extends from when I was in second grade to now I'm 28 years old, or about to be 28 years old, covering the Giants for a living.
So now, what did you cover before covering the Giants? Or were you in college, or how you're 28? So obviously you've been out of college for a few years. But what was your assignment before the Mercury News and Bud Geraci said, you know what, that's the guy I'm looking for?
Kind of been all over the place, and all over the place even in the Bay too at the Merc. I moved around from Seattle down. I went to ASU, same alumni as our former beat writer Kerry Crowley.
Did you know Kerry? Did you know Kerry at ASU?
Indeed, we shared plenty of travails on the ASU football beat at ASU, along with a number of other baseball beat writers. It's a bit of a dynasty out there these days at the old Cronkite School in downtown Phoenix.
It is actually a good broadcasting school. My nephew was going to go there, decided to go to Gonzaga. I know my good friend John Lund, his kid's talking about maybe going there. And I do have a buddy, one of my daughter's friends who wants to be a sports talk show host or wants to be a sports media guy. He's there at that program at the Cronkite School, and it's pretty highly regarded, right? Isn't it is it their communications program, or they're just a broadcast school, or is it for all journalism?
The facilities there are crazy, Larry. It's like you step into like a professional broadcast studio, but they have students run the shop. It's like I didn't do broadcast, I did print. I got there, and it like the facilities kind of sold me on it, and then just rode the wave of all the journalism instructors from then on. But yeah, the facilities are pretty crazy, and so I graduated in 2015. I moved out to Philly after that, actually, and covered the Phillies team right before Gabe Kapler got there. It was the last season before Gabe Kapler arrived in Philadelphia. I covered that team for a season, then moved back to Seattle for a few years, and wound up back here in the Bay covering prep sports with Darren Saavedra, who we should all be familiar with. A legend in the Bay, the hardest worker in the business. Learned a lot from him, and then kind of just moved all over the place. And did preps. I covered the Super Bowl and the Niners. Went to Miami, came down here for a couple of years, and did a transition to like a year of pandemic coverage where I was writing about death and despair every day. So it's a breath of fresh air to be out here at spring training writing about baseball.
I would say, yeah. I mean, my goodness. I mean, the fact that it's funny. What we've all been through the last couple of years, just to see spring training and everybody in the stands. I mean, I don't want to get too caught up in it, but I mean, considering where we've all been, considering what we've all gone through, what we've experienced, it's like to see people at a baseball game many just not wearing masks and just having a good time and getting back to kind of normalcy. I don't know. It makes me feel good. And I'm excited for this baseball season because I just feel like this. We got through a season where there were no fans, and then last year there was only slightly better, and I feel like this is kind of like the return to somewhat normal, if you want to call it that. What's the vibe like down there around the team?
Yeah, I feel like that just transcends like the whole experience down here. Is that folks are so happy to be back in the ballpark, having these normal experiences. I mean, they've hosted 2 games at Scottsdale Stadium so far. They've both been packed houses. I think there's a little over 10,000 on their first night and 9,000 here tonight. It's a Monday night in Scottsdale, and there were a few empty seats here in the stadium, and it was a rowdy crowd too.
Was it?
Yeah, well, by the time you get into hour 3 of a spring training game, there's not much better to do than drink and heckle. So
now this is like there are very few night games. Is this the only night game, or is there another night game between now and opening day?
we've had our last 2. It was the first one and the second one here at Scottsdale, and they'll be in the day going forward. I think the only 2 games that are televised back in the Bay too.
Nice. Well, okay, why don't we get to quickly, if people want to get a hold of you and your stuff, tell them where they can find you on Twitter, tell them where they can find your writings on the Giants every day, and then we'll get into the club and some of the subplots to this thing.
Yeah, looking forward to it. On Twitter, just first and last name @Evan Wiebeck, and you can find my work on mercurynews.com, or if you're that type of guy, eastbaytimes.com too.
Well, today was Alex Wood, and I thought Webb the other day, Friday night, had awesome stuff. Right, he struck out 5 in a couple innings, and then he was kind of critical of his performance. He said he didn't like the way his sinker looked in the second inning, but to me, he looked overpowering. And then Wood tonight, I thought his stuff looked really live. I mean, I don't know what he said about it afterwards, but just judging on those 2 guys. So far, so good, huh? Both those guys look really fresh-armed coming into this year, as you would expect.
Yeah, Wood was really happy with his performance tonight, and as he should be. It was 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, 3 down, 3 strikeouts. The slider looked like it was in midseason form, just like Webb did the other night, right? Like where his out pitch is totally in midseason form. And I think it's a testament to the work they've done in the offseason, probably. I mean, we got on a bit of a tangent talking about Clayton Kershaw's 5-inning spring training debut with Alex Wood, who made sure to note how crazy that is on Twitter.
Was it him or Scherzer? I thought it was Scherzer that went 5.
Who did I say?
I think you said Kershaw.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, Scherzer.
It was Scherzer. Yeah, Scherzer went 5. How about that, though? First time out, and you go 5? I mean, my goodness. I mean, it was like 70 pitches or something, right?
72, as Wood said, a savage.
So the rotation looks, I would say the rotation looks pretty good. Okay, so it's Webb as your ace. You got Wood, you got DeSclafani, you got Rodon, and then you got Alex Cobb. And then there's depth behind that. But what do you think of that group? And then Matthew Boyd at some point. What do you think of the rotation on paper? And then what's your thought on Boyd? They gave him $5.2 million on a 1-year deal with some incentives. When do you think we'll see Boyd this year? He's not ready to go out of spring, right? He's going to be somewhere in the season, because he got hurt in September, didn't he?
Yeah, he got shut down back in June, and actually up until that point, he was having, I think, the best season of his career. He had a sub-4 ERA, good kind of splits to go with it. But then he started having some pain in his arm, and so he had surgery in September on his flexor tendon. He's not supposed to be back till June, but he's just another piece of depth that they've added to the rotation, as you said. I mean, they've got those 5 guys who are kind of like those are the obvious 5 guys, right? That you slot into a conventional 5-man rotation, and it's a good lineup of pitchers, but they've all kind of had their own concerns, right? Whether it's health or durability issues, all of them have had major, other than Webb, have had major arm issues in their career. And Webb has never pitched a full season, a full major league season in his career. And he's the guy who they're probably expected to be turning to on opening day, expected to lead the staff. So I think they knew they needed to backfill that staff with all of those question marks, no matter how many things went right last season. It was one of the most durable staffs in the league, despite an equally, back history of injury concerns too amongst that group. So if they're able to repeat that this season, then they've got a great five, right? Like I think that's a playoff rotation there. But backfilling, you can never have too much starting pitching depth, right? And especially with a group like this. I think Boyd's an interesting guy. Carlos Martinez. I mean, any baseball fan should know that name. That's an interesting guy. We talked to him today for the first time.
What's he saying? He was a 2-time All-Star. I mean, he was once upon a time, not that long. I mean, he's only 30 or 31. He's not that far removed from being a multiple-time All-Star who was throwing like 98.
Right. Yeah. And he said he fully expects to get back to that form, whether that's realistic expectations or not. I'm not sure if that's the case. When he ended last season, his fastball was down something like 4 miles an hour. It was back down to like averaging 93 miles an hour. He said, though, he's gone through a lot of health problems, whether it's his shoulder at the start of 2019 or he tore a ligament in his thumb that ended his season last year. But more so than anything, he pointed to some mental health concerns that he was dealing with, that he ended up going to a therapist a little over a year ago and talking through that. And he feels like he's past that now. He had gone through a divorce, actually separated from his wife, and said that had really hit him hard and actually impacted him on the field and his performance on the field. And if you look back at Martinez's 2021, the numbers aren't great, but if you look at the game log, there are some solid starts in there that kind of point to maybe some potential. And is there a better place for a pitcher to reclaim his career than San Francisco? I mean, how many guys over the last couple of years have done something like they want to see from Martinez or Rodon, for that matter, or any number of guys who they're bringing in this year?
That's interesting because, so many times there's such a disconnect between these are real guys with real lives and real stress, and this is their baseball card, and this is what we expect from them. They're not machines. And the fact that the guy was going through a divorce and that he was opening up about how that impacted his performance, I mean, that's totally understandable to me. I think that's really interesting. And it's, to me, interesting to see what he will do now that he's got a little perspective on that. By the way, at the bottom of the screen, you can see Good Guys Hot Rod Custom Association. They've got an event coming up, and they are our sponsor. So we should tell everybody, March 26th and 27th, if you're looking for something to do on the weekends in the Bay Area, hit Pleasanton, the fairgrounds, and it's the Good Guys 38th All-American Get-Together. It's at the Alameda County Fairgrounds down there in Pleasanton. Should be great weather coming up this weekend. It's America's favorite car show. There'll be over 3,000 American-made and powered hot rods, muscle cars, and trucks. They'll all be out there on display, and they've got a bunch of things going on for the kids. They got the Lowrider exhibition and the Nitro Thunder Fest, and the big question is who's going to win the Good Guys Fuel Curve Custom of the Year. So I'm sure you want to check it out, and if you do, you can go to their website, good-guys.com, good with the dash in the middle, guys.com, and you can register your vehicle. You can get tickets to the show or just more information about the show. Once again, good-guys.com. One starting pitcher that I got to get your thoughts on, and that is Tyler Beatty. Tyler Beatty, Giants took him in the first round out of Vanderbilt. And, man, there has been times where he's really shown not just good stuff, Evan, but, ace-like stuff. Mm-hmm. And I heard the guys in the broadcast tonight say that Beatty's out of options. Mm-hmm. So this is a huge camp for Tyler Beatty. It's a huge camp for Mauricio Dubon, another guy who's out of options. And I know, I think it was Pavlovich who had an article today where he was talking about how, the Giants, believe it or not, even though it's a short spring training, you may see them make a trade here in the next week or so, possibly involving one of those guys, just for the reasons that we just described, that they're out of options and the Giants will have to send them through waivers if they don't make the final. I'm going to say 26-man. It might be a 28-man roster to start the year. But give me your perspective. What are you hearing around Beatty and around Dubon and their chances of making this roster out of the Cactus League?
Yeah, I think that's right on point. There's not room, even on a 28-man roster, likely, for both Dubon and Thairo Estrada. And from everything that I've heard, the team and everybody in the organization loves what they saw from Thairo Estrada last year. And he's another guy who's out of options. has the same kind of positional flexibility as Dubon. Was a little bit better at the plate. I'm not sure if he's younger, right around the same age. But those are two very similar players who are both out of options. Probably one of them is going to fill a pretty critical role for this team, and it's going to depend on how they come out of spring training. But I think it makes sense to be pursuing trades of these guys. I mean, we've kind of seen, I don't know, maybe this is a stretch too far, but we've seen with the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo, right? If you hold on to an asset too long and then everybody knows that you need to get rid of it, it devalues that asset, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? The Jimmy trade rumors are never going away. It's like we're on day 74 of Jimmy trade watch. Yeah, no. So, but in baseball, of course, you know, the out of options thing, you know, you don't want to, like, I wouldn't, if I'm far on Zaidi, I wouldn't want to lose Tyler Beatty for nothing. I wouldn't want to lose Dubon for nothing. These guys are major league caliber players. They may not be good enough to go north with this club, but they are definitely good enough to pitch or play in the major leagues. So
they're certainly not passing through waivers. You're not keeping them and sneaking them to the minor leagues.
Yeah. So I mean, so you think that Pavlovich might be onto something, that there may be a deal in the offing here in the next few days or next week or so?
I think that would be the smart move. Beatty is a tougher guy, I think, to let go of than one of those two. I mean, he's a guy that they've invested so much in, that they had such high hopes for. I mean, he came in. I got my first taste of the Giants beat 2 spring trainings ago, just coming down here to spell carry for a week or so. And I was actually here when Beatty had that original injury that led to the Tommy John surgery. And I remember the vibe around camp back then. You know, he was a guy who was coming off his first season in the rotation, expected to play a major role on the team and the future going forward, and then just gets shut down. And all of a sudden, he's 28 years old, out of options. So, I mean, he still flashes the nasty stuff. His fastball was touching 96 in his first outing of the spring, and he looked fine. He didn't allow any walks. That was kind of the big issue with him after he came back from Tommy John on his rehab assignment, and the minor league assignment after that is the dude couldn't throw strikes. He was walking almost a batter an inning. So if he's resolved those issues, and he kind of says that he's simplified things in his delivery, and that's kind of been the message from the organization to him. If he has resolved those things, he's definitely a valuable addition to a major league roster, and maybe he's a guy that the Giants would rather keep around rather than trade him. But that said, we were just talking about all the pitching depths they have, and Beatty is the least flexible roster option out of all those guys. All the other guys on the back end of the pitching depth, whether it's Martinez or Jacob Junis, another new guy, all those guys have the ability to go down to the minor leagues if they don't make the major league roster. Whereas Beatty, it's major leagues or bust for him at the end of spring training.
What are the Giants saying about Sean Jelly? You know, Giants have a 6'11" righty. If people, and many people, Giants fans, have yet to see him because he's never pitched in the bigs, but Sean Jelly is interesting to me because, you know, you think 6'11", you think, oh man, he's going to have a hard time repeating that delivery. He's going to have a hard time throwing strikes, you know, kind of like a young Randy Johnson. But this is not your typical 6'11" pitcher. He's pretty compact. He doesn't have this wild arms and legs flying everywhere. For a 6'11" guy, he's incredibly compact. What did the Giants think of his Cactus League debut yesterday?
Yeah, well, let me say, after 4 months of covering the Warriors, he's the only guy who doesn't look small to me. Right?
Yeah.
I'm reminded baseball players are of a normal size for the most part, but not Sean Jelly.
Not Sean Jelly. He's you know, maybe with Wiseman down, the Warriors ought to be calling Sean Jelly, right? I mean, they could use some size right now. But
he's got more durable knees.
What's that?
He's got more durable knees, at least.
Yeah. How far away is he from the big leagues? I liked what I saw from him yesterday. He's obviously, because he is 6'11", he's got that natural downward plane, and then he is pretty compact, and then his compact delivery, I think, makes his fastball kind of ramp up because he doesn't have a ton of arm speed, but it's like kind of sneaky fast. I mean, it just seems like the hitter, and I've only seen a few hitters face him, but it seems like they're just like a tick behind. Like they're expecting him, like they're expecting a less of a fastball than he actually is bringing to the table. What is his arsenal, and how far away do you think he is?
Yeah, I mean, when you're that size, it's such a different look for major league hitters that it could, like, that alone can fluster the timing,
Sure.
the motion and where the ball is released from the arm, like all that matters when you're a major league hitter. You pick up on these intricacies. And when you're faced with a guy like Jelly, who's so different from anybody else you're facing on a day-to-day basis, like it's just kind of, it's an advantage in and of itself as a pitcher to be that way. But an interesting comp that we've gotten here in camp from Gabe Kapler and some of the other Giants for Jelly, Logan Webb. Now they say this with the asterisk that Sean Jelly is not Logan Webb. Logan Webb's one of a kind pitcher, but they're both guys who rely on the movement of their pitches more so than the actual placement of them, and that was kind of the big message that led to Webb's breakout in the second half, was that you just have to trust your stuff. You just have to get it in the zone, start your pitches in the middle of the plate, and they're going to move to where you want them and where hitters don't want them. And Jelly, that's kind of the same message that the Giants have been giving Jelly this season. And it's what they thought. He was trying to be a little bit too perfect when he got to AAA last year. And that's where I would imagine he'll start the year. But it's hard to imagine, if he has any success down there, that he's not cracking the big league roster at some point this season with all the pitching needs that they're going to need.
Yeah. Webb was so good last year. I thought he was probably the brightest of the bright spots. But, man, if you're a young pitcher, you should follow the fact that, this guy, I think it's September, the previous September, maybe it was 2 years ago in September, he was getting ripped. I mean, he couldn't get out. He couldn't finish 5 innings. He was throwing tons of pitches. He wasn't throwing strikes. It hadn't all come together. And it's just amazing watching his stuff come together over the last couple of years. Now nothing he throws is straight. Everything's on a downward plane. He can get ground balls seemingly at will. He's become a strikeout pitcher, a lot of swing and miss against him. So, I mean, it just kind of shows that, just because you make it to the majors doesn't mean that you've arrived, right? He made it to the majors and then struggled. And coming into last year, he had a number of struggles, and I don't think he was far from like a lock to even be in the rotation, let alone, a co-ace with Gausman. And by the end of the year, he was probably better than Gausman. I mean, that performance in the playoffs against the Dodgers was awesome. 7 shutout innings against that lineup. I mean, that was incredible. All right, a couple of things I want to get to. One is the Giants seemingly have a good eye for picking up these kind of nondescript players. And I used to joke with Farhan about it. It's like, you really, every single move he makes, you got to go research the player, look at the numbers, break it all down, because he has a tendency to get guys at the exact right time, and it's worked for him. And the guy that has impressed me just in a couple of days of watching him, and I saw him at Stanford back in the day, was Alex Blandino. Blandino was a great hitter in the Cape in the Cape Cod League when he was going at Stanford. He's a St. Francis kid who got drafted by the A's and went to Stanford instead, and then became an awesome player, was a first-round pick, then tore his ACL, then broke his hand. Then there's COVID and all the distractions and everything that went along with that. And it's like, now here he is. He's 29. He's a 225 career hitter. He's probably known by baseball people more for the fact that he's got a killer knuckleball and he can pitch as well as hit. He's kind of like one of those guys. But I just think that, we saw him hit a ball tonight to center field that was just absolutely nutted. And he's got bat speed. He's a good hitter, and he knows the strike zone. And I was looking at his pitches seen per at bat stat. This guy sees, like, last year, I think it was like 4.3 per at bat. That would have led the San Francisco Giants last year in pitches seen per at bat. So we know they like guys who know the zone. We know they like guys who, work counts and see pitches. Blandino fits that description, and he can play second. He can play third. Really, he can play pretty much anywhere except for catch, center field. I'd say pitcher, but he pitches. So what are you hearing about Blandino? What is your thoughts watching him down there?
Yeah, it's funny. Blandino's just like another local guy. They're learning this roster. There are so many Bay Area products, whether it's college or high school ties that make it on this team, and the Giants seem to like that. Maybe add that to your list of factors. I don't know if playing for the hometown team is any added factor in success. But yeah, Blandino's a guy who he's interesting, right? Because he's moved around so much and just hasn't really been able to find the stability that he might need to succeed. You know, another guy like that is Jason Prasad, and I don't think that there's a name that's come out of Gabe Kapler's mouth more this spring.
Really? He's a pretty good hitter too, huh?
He is. They love the hit tool. They love his approach at the plate. They say the question about him is the glove. Prasad, I didn't know the name before I started on this job, so let me explain for all the listeners. He's 42 years old, and he's never played in the major leagues. He's spent 11 years just toiling in the minors, but he got back. He got to Sacramento last year in AAA and slugged. I think he had an OPS over 900 in AAA, and he's another guy who plays all over the diamond. He and Blandino have very similar profiles. And we've heard a lot more about Krueger than Blandino so far this spring. But Blandino is definitely a guy who has like very similar tools and like a good approach at the plate, good eye, all that you said that makes him like an appealing target, kind of a Giants type player who could maybe be one of those under the radar guys to break out.
People want to get in here on the chat. We'll throw a few of them on the board. Edison says, "Hey, Krug." Hey, Edison. I mean, it's as simple as that. G Don says, "Krug, did you ever think about going to 95.7 or back to Mad Dog Radio on Sirius XM?" All I'll say to that, G Don, is stay tuned. Stay tuned, my friend. Famous Funk says, "Huge fan, Larry. Been listening to you since you started on KMBR. Y'all got me through college." Oh, stop it. Stop it with that. Got you through college. Making me feel old. Let's see. We got a bunch of people weighing in here. Burrito says, "Hey, yo." So we got a bunch of people kind of following, and there's probably a few questions here as well. Here we go. GTC Reels. Larry, are you outside of Lowe's? It's Scottsdale Stadium, damn it. Can't you make that out?
Look at the colors.
See, do I have to duck? It's Scottsdale Stadium. Lowe's. Come on. I can get a better backdrop than Lowe's. All right. Let's see. We've got this one from Tranman916. That's up in Sacramento. "I immediately subscribed to you, Krug, when I heard you were on YouTube." Well, thank you. Go to Krug Show and subscribe. This is kind of an interesting one. Hella this, hella that weighs in with, "We want Jose Ramirez and Cedric Mullins. Get her done, Farhan. Bart, Jelly, Villar, Toribio for Ramirez, Bishop, McCrae, Glowenke, Seth Corey for Mullins." He's saying Matt Olson set the trade market. Well, I mean, those are big name guys. Cedric Mullins is a star. Jose Ramirez is a star.
You're not getting without giving up Luciano or a Matos or a somebody like that. Barton is going to headline that.
Where do you think Farhan is in this whole thing? Because they could use another. I mean, they could use a Jose Ramirez. Let's be honest.
He's the perfect fit, right? If not Trevor Story, then Jose Ramirez, right?
Jose Ramirez would be even better because you don't got to pay him $140 million. And I saw Trevor Story's numbers outside of Denver. He's a 240 hitter outside of Denver, so that's a tough one to swallow if you're going to pay him big cash. But what do you think of the potential for Farhan? He's spent the last 2 years accumulating all these prospects. Now, I would say in my lifetime, this is probably the deepest farm system the Giants have had, or definitely since I was like 5 or 6 years old. And the question I would have for you're around Farhan and the team. I mean, it's not that he's showing you his cards or telling you what his intentions are. But do you think he's at a point in the rebuild of this organization? They won 107. They went to the playoffs. Now there's some expectations. Now there's some attention. Now I don't want to say the burden of expectations, but now people think the team's pretty good. And now there's some expectations of the playoffs. Do you think he's at a point where he would say, you know what, I'll trade a Hunter Bishop or I'll trade this guy for a Jose Ramirez and I'll get a young player with a couple years of control and I'm not afraid to move a top-tier prospect? The guy that I don't want him to move is the guy we saw tonight, Luis Matos, who I'm a huge Matos fan.
But catch in the field in the ninth inning.
Incredible. Plus the bat speed is crazy. And he's high. I mean, guy takes a ridiculous Herculean swing. And I love that kid's potential. do not trade Luis Matos. That would be the guy that I would say, you know what, don't trade. But like Hunter Bishop, you know, you saw him at ASU. He's a highly rated guy, and maybe in 5 years he could be something. But it's going to be a while. If you could get a Jose Ramirez, but you got to part with Hunter Bishop and maybe a couple other young pieces to the puzzle, would you do it? And do you think Farhan would?
I mean, I think if we're talking Bishop, yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. I think he's kind of fallen down the prospect boards a little bit recently. He's dealt with some injury issues and not had a lot of success last season. And they're telling him to, again, simplify his approach, be a little less aggressive. I don't know. I personally, when an organization like the Giants plays in San Francisco, you see the payrolls of other teams. I mean, these guys have all the money in the world to spend, right? And prospects are a finite resource. They're not anywhere near the luxury tax threshold. They're
100 million beneath, right?
Yeah, they're not even at their opening day payroll from last year. So there's a lot of money to spend. And I mean, we asked Farhan, he said money's not an issue. Making moves, it's more about considering whose at bats they're taking away at this point. But yeah, I'm with you. I would not part with a Matos. I wouldn't part with a Luciano. Those are guys that are going to be hopefully your cornerstones of the future. And I think like the kind of the team building philosophy that some of these new age thinkers have. And I'm from Seattle. I pay attention to what Jerry DiPoto's doing. And I think he has a similar.
He's had a good off season.
Yeah, and a similar philosophy, I think, to Farhan, where you want to build up your core roster to the point where you only need to be going to free agency and hopefully avoiding the big trades, at least where you're parting with your best guys, by being able to just supplement your in-house talent, right, with a big name free agent. And I think we've seen Farhan kind of go that way, right, in some of his failed but attempted free agent acquisitions, right? It's pretty well known that the Giants were finalists for Bryce Harper, and that's a guy that they pursued seriously for big money. You know, they have no problem spending the money when a guy they think deserves it. It's just kind of about convincing them to come to San Francisco at that point. It's kind of the same story with Story, right? A guy that they thought would be a good fit who could maybe round out the roster, an in-house roster that they built with big money. Whether they trade prospects for it, it's not something that I would do. I definitely value prospects more highly than others in terms of building a team and a foundation, right? But when you're on the cusp of something, then you kind of have to start thinking about it. I guess all that said, who knows?
we covered every angle. Hey, who's that Mariners outfield prospect who's just awesome?
Oh, Julio Rodriguez.
Yeah, my God, I saw him. That kid is something else. Oh my God. Yeah. He looks really, really good. Jacob says, super stoked you're continuing your career on YouTube, Larry. This platform is the future, and I love listening to you on here. All right. Well, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. Let me ask you about a guy that was really intriguing to me, and I was talking about him with a Giant fan today who is asking me about Brett Auerbach, and he played in the game tonight. And then I went and I kind of read up on this kid, and he played at Alabama, and he hit 388 his final year at Alabama, and he can play catcher. And I saw, Gabe went out of his way to say that this kid's not just like a passable catcher or a guy who's, could catch an inning. He likes him behind the plate. And then how many guys do you see who play catcher, second base, third base, and center field? I mean, I can't think of almost anybody. I mean, maybe Craig Biggio, young Craig Biggio, not too many guys. And this kid has bat speed. He had incredible stats. Now, granted, he hasn't played a minute over A-ball, so he's not like he should be up this year. He has to play Double-A. He probably's got to play Triple-A, but he's already had a couple of triples. He's got major bat speed, good foot speed. He kind of has this kind of Pete Rose hustle thing going on. What are you hearing about Brett Auerbach, and where in the pecking order of Giants catchers on the depth chart does he sit right now?
Yeah, I asked Gabe today what some of his biggest surprises from the first week of camp are, and
Yeah.
the first,
What's he
the
saying?
first answer he gave was Brett Auerbach.
Really?
And I think we would all agree, having watched him, I think is the first two games that he's played out here, not only did he play catcher and second base in them, he hit triples at both of them too. So the guy can hit and he can play anywhere. And you're right. Like the only guy really that comes to mind like that is Biggio, because there are plenty of guys out there who serve as utility roles and maybe an emergency third catcher if needed. Right. But Auerbach is a guy who's got like legitimate tools behind the plate, who could stick as a full-time catcher and just supplement guys on the infield when needed, or he could stick as a full-time second baseman or third baseman, or he could move into a full-on utility role. I mean, obviously, it's far too early to make any real projections about what this guy's going to do in the majors. I think he's 20 years old, something like not much older than that. But yeah, he's a guy who's played all over the diamond, played outfield too. And yeah, I mean, he's pretty much the epitome of what the Giants love in terms of versatility, maybe more so than anybody else in the organization. And what you said about the catchers and the catching depth too, it's truly impressive the way that they've stockpiled talent behind Buster Posey in the organization in leading up to his retirement. It's truly a toss-up in terms of who's going to be the franchise catcher, I think, going forward. Joey Bart obviously is the guy who's going to get the majority of the season, but there's so much talent down at the lower levels of the organization too to get excited about. Whether it's Ricardo Genovese, Auerbach, Patrick Bailey was their first round pick. I mean, they spent another first round pick on a catcher despite having Bart so close to the big leagues, and I think that speaks to how they feel about Patrick Bailey too. And
Genovese, right? They got a kid, Ricardo Genovese, and they have a guy named is from Venezuela, I believe. Is it Sagastny or something like that?
Yeah, Adrian Sagasti. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so they're pretty stacked there. Bart, do you think is it as simple as Bart's the guy, or do you think that Bart's not the guy and they'll trade Bart? Or the one thing about Bart that Giants fans have to remember: Farhan did not draft Bart. He inherited Bart. And Bart is obviously big, strong guy, second pick in the draft, a lot of right-handed power potential. But is he the next Mike Zunino? Or is he, going to be a far greater player than that? I don't know. I mean, they in college at G-Tech, he drew the Veritek comparisons because Veritek played there. And he's a big-bodied guy. But after watching him, I don't love his ability to. I mean, he looks like a guy. He's got a great arm. He's big, strong guy with right-handed power, but he doesn't walk very much. He kind of strikes out too much. He forgets the count. He gets crossed up. Him and Cueto last year was a circus. I mean, those guys could never get on the same page. Where do you, if you're around this team, what is your guess how they feel about Joey Bart? They're never going to badmouth him, but do you think they like him, love him? Is he going to be the guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think all that has to be said is expected role going into the season, right? And he's not the everyday catcher going into the season. I mean, as much as they like Kirk Casale and the way that he handled the pitching staff last year, I mean, Kirk Casale is a career backup catcher.
Right.
And they like Casale, but he's going to be basically holding a timeshare with Bart to start the season. And I think every opportunity is there for Bart to steal all that playing time away from Casale if he impresses. But he's going to have to show real growth in his ability to call games, to manage a pitching staff, kind of all the intricacies that come with being a catcher at the major league level, right? That he hasn't really shown that ability as you alluded to, like when he came up in 2020 and in lieu of when Posey was out for the COVID season, there were a ton of issues on the pitching staff. And they haven't been shy to make that known either. Like, I think, when we were talking to Farhan, he was pretty blunt about Bart's struggles in 2020, but he attributed that to him being a rookie catcher and not having the trust of the pitching staff. That is something that he's been working on over the last 2 years. The reports from within the organization are all positive. Apparently at their end of the season meetings last year, when the coaching staff and the front office meets with all of the players from all levels of the organization. They talked with guys who played with him at AAA, pitchers who threw to him, and said that it was much improved, both their trust in him and simply his game calling ability. One thing I saw Gabe noted on the broadcast today was how Joey handled his bullpen recently with Carlos Rodon. He threw a live bullpen. I watched that bullpen. Rodon stuff was totally nasty. But he was working on a curveball, and I saw Bart came over and kind of took Rodon over to the side, something that a catcher is supposed to do. You talk about the bullpen, and I couldn't hear the conversation, but Gabe could. And Gabe said that Joey was the guy who was leading that conversation with Rodon. So I think that's a positive sign for the future. You see one guy that he's really worked to build a relationship with is Alex Wood, a fellow Georgian. They both live in Atlanta in the offseason. Well, actually, Joey, maybe this speaks to something about him. He lives out in the sticks. I don't know if you know this, he was born in a town of fewer than 20,000 people.
So he's a small town guy.
A small town guy, but he hosted Alex Wood for twice a week for the last month or two leading up to the season. They were throwing live bullpens every day to each other to build up that rapport. And I thought it was interesting tonight in the game. It was Wood's first start of the spring, and they had Casale behind the plate, and I had to wonder, is that because he's built up the rapport already with Bart that they want him throwing to Casale this spring?
Casale, they say, is pretty jacked, huh? He's put on some muscle weight. I mean, you weren't covering this team last year every day, but do you notice? Have you heard people talking about his physique down there this year? Supposedly he's muscle bound this year.
I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a catching duo that's more of a tank than Joey Bart and Kirk.
What about Kapler's shoes last night? I mean, what the heck? Though, he's got like high tops, and I don't even know if they look like they definitely don't look like baseball shoes. I mean, almost look like dress shoes. Did you notice the footwear from Cap?
I didn't pick up on those. No, I didn't. But
okay, you gotta check that out.
100% believe it though, man. Cap is he's a cultured man. He likes
that's right.
We were talking about he's staying in downtown Phoenix for spring training, and he says downtown Phoenix is underrated. He loves the street art. He loves the restaurants. Like this guy. I mean, how old is he? We were just talking about this. He's not quite
relatively young.
Next, off the field, like this guy is just a regular kind of young man, like absorbing life and the culture. It's kind of fun to watch. He's
a very cool guy, man. I was driving through the city a few months ago, Evan, and all of a sudden this biker passes me on the left, and I look up. It's Gabe. Gabe on his bike, going through the city. Couple last things before we let you go. We do appreciate you stopping by, man, and we'd love to do this periodically throughout the season because, we're really eager to talk a lot of Giants baseball, and you're going to be at these games with great perspective. Elliot Ramos, to me looks leaner and better than a year ago. Where do you think he sits in their thinking in the outfield? Do you think one of the reasons that they haven't gone out for another bat in the outfield is that they kind of earmarking a spot for Elliot Ramos? Because he hit a ball, I think it was maybe yesterday's game. I saw it late last night, and it was a shot to right center. I mean, it was just absolutely a bolt of lightning. And he just looks leaner to me. And I know he struck out too much, didn't walk enough. And, Giants fans are like, when's he coming? When's he coming? When's he coming? I got to think that he's getting pretty close to breaking through. Physically, I've never seen him look leaner and better than the way he looks coming into this camp. What are you hearing from the Giants? What are you hearing? What's the buzz around Ramos in this camp?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that he's leaner because we were just talking to Gabe about him, and he said that not only is the word within the organization that the ball sounds different coming off his bat this spring, but he sounds different when he runs past you.
The noise he makes, the wind shear.
Like that. It's almost like what we were talking about with Bart and Casale, right?
Right.
I mean, this obviously isn't a comp, but in terms of like body structure and physicality, one name that did come up was Mike Trout, and just like a big built dude who makes just like makes you feel his presence, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was definitely something that came up with Ramos. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle his development. He's a guy who's looked really good this spring for sure. He had that double yesterday that again was just smacked off the bat.
Yeah.
And there's certainly, with the way that they've approached the roster, going to be opportunities for him in the big leagues. But one thing that Kapler has kind of stressed to us as we ask about these prospects is how much they value upper level experience. Not for arms, as we've seen guys like shoot through the minors like Camilo Duvall, stuff like that, but for batters especially, to get those live reps against upper level arms. And that's something that Ramos is probably going to need to prove himself in this year before he gets that call up to the bigs. But he's certainly the guy who's closest on the cusp, right, of their top prospects and the biggest names. So it's going to be really exciting to see him. And I mean, I love watching young guys. I love it when they make their big league debuts. I love seeing them progress and just like how they approach making adjustments to big league pitching. Like it's all fascinating to me because there's so much to absorb for such a young guy. And as I'm getting older, these guys are getting younger and younger, right? Man, these guys are 22 years old and you're doing this on a stage like that. And all this like, it's just so impressive. And especially for some of these international guys who are doing it without, in a foreign land, having to learn a new language, stuff like that. I mean, it really just blows my mind.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing about it too, Evan, is that Major League Baseball advanced scouts are so damn good that you'll see a guy rolling and he might have a good series, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe he has a good week, maybe a month. And then the scouts get a book on him and they just turn off his water, suddenly they find out this guy, whatever your weakness is, he can't handle the breaking ball away. He can't handle the fastball in the hands. Whatever you can't handle, you're going to get. And it's a game of constant adjustments. And so it's interesting to see, how many guys are up for 3 weeks and, light it up. And then how many guys are up for 3 weeks, light it up, and then sink like a stone. 2 last things before we let you go. Will Toffee, give me your thoughts on Toffee. He hit a bolt of lightning out to right. He's another one of these bats that under the radar guy, been around. Farhan added him to the organization, has a little power. I think he plays first and third. Is Toffee just AAA insurance, or do you think he's got a big league future?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's 27 years old. He's never played above AAA, and frankly, not much above AA. I was pretty impressed by him, at least his hustle today, late in the late innings. He had that hit too, but there was one throw home from center. Somebody was trying to score, and he just about broke his neck diving to cut off.
I saw that. That was Dave on the broadcast was like, a very awkward play there by Toffee. I mean, it's like, guy looked like he almost died in the middle of the field.
A little bit concerned by that, but yeah, I would imagine that's probably a depth guy. I mean, maybe he cracks the roster if he's one of these Farhan gems, but he's not a guy that I've heard a whole ton about.
How many guys do you think will be on? What will be the major league roster size on opening day? Any word on that? I mean, I'd heard they're at 26. Would it be at 28, 29, more or less? What are you hearing down there on that?
It's a good question. Gabe Kapler doesn't know, so I don't know.
Wow. Does that surprise you that baseball would start the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League without the managers and the general managers knowing what the roster size is for opening day? It's like,
and not just start. We're getting like 2 weeks into spring training now. Like it's almost
right.
And we don't know how big the rosters are going to be. It's kind of crazy,
weird.
Right?
Yeah.
I will say the league polled the managers about how they feel about expanded rosters. So maybe we're going to see some clarity on that issue soon. We're asking Gabe about it almost every day, it seems. And he sounds like he's in favor of it. He said most around the league seem to be in favor of it. So it sounds like it's going to happen. What it's going to be, 28 seems like a good number, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I'd go with 28. I can't imagine players, right? They're going to be pitchers with the way the spring training is, and guys not able to get full.
And can you tell us anything about this Diego Rincones? Because Rincones is a 22-year-old kid, and they said he can really hit. He got hit by a pitch in the 6th inning. He's from Venezuela. 293, 15 bombs last year in 76 games. Supposedly he doesn't strike out. He's not a great runner. Doesn't have a great body for the game. But man, that guy can really hit, and you can see his offensive potential. He just looks very comfortable in the batter's box. What anybody saying anything about Diego Is it Rincones?
I believe it's Rincones. Yeah, and he was one of their young guys who came in. I think it was their first game of the spring here at Scottsdale Stadium when they were struggling to get any hits on the board, and came in and had some really good at bats, just great approach at the plate. And we asked Gabe about that the next morning, about just some of the overall scope of those young guys being able to get runs on the board and get hits while when the rest of the team wasn't. And Rincones was one of the guys that Kapler singled out in talking about that, just in the way that he liked his approach at the plate, the at bats that he put together. It was all positive for Rincones. It'll be interesting to see how he progresses throughout the system, because he's not a guy that I had really heard much about before getting down.
Either.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But there he is in a Cactus League game, and he looked like a major league hitter. I'll say that. He didn't look like a minor league hitter. He looked like a guy who swings the bat with a lot of authority. One last one I got to get your thoughts on. I read today Caleb Berreger DFA'd last week. Hunter Harvey DFA'd last week. The Giants did this last year constantly, DFAing different guys, promoting them up and down, but they wound up losing both these guys. Berreger was a 9th round pick by the Giants in 2020. And let's see, Berreger goes to the D-backs. Hunter Harvey winds up on the Nationals. Man, that's disappointing, because those are 2 live arms that I think the Giants in an ideal world would have had those guys as bullpen depth, especially Berreger, who looked really good at times last year. But is this kind of like the new world order where everybody knows now that, Gabe Kapler and Farhan Zaidi are pretty freaking smart, and if they like these guys, guess what? You probably maybe ought to take a closer look at them. And now it's going to be harder for the Giants to, DFA guys and get guys through waivers, because their reputation around the league is that they know what the hell's going on.
That's exactly my read of the situation. It's almost like other teams are kind of letting Farhan and the regime do their work for them a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Farhan likes him. Get him over here.
I mean, it's not bad logic, right? I mean, you're right. I mean, those are 2 guys with live arms. Harvey was a former 1st-round pick. Touches in the 90s. Berreger had a sub-2 ERA and not an insignificant amount of appearances last year out of the bullpen. I think he came out of the bullpen 25 times, 1.57 ERA, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Giants have a ton of pitching depth in the bullpen, so they decided they were expendable. But I mean, those are 2 arms that anybody's going to hate to lose, and I think it's going to be harder to go. I mean, everything kind of is going to be harder this season, especially, teams are more aware. You get attention on you when you win 107 games, especially when you do it in the way that the Giants did last season, where you get all these contributions from guys that nobody had either heard of or thought they were finished, right? So you really get the attention of the rest of the league. And on top of that, the new CBA is going to make things harder too, whether it's limiting options or roster moves, or with these guys they DFA, there's no chance of them really probably getting them back, even if they get put on waivers again, because all the other 29 teams are going to have to pass on them before the Giants have a chance to get them back, even if the Giants have the worst record in the league.
Last one, and we do appreciate it, man. You spent over almost an hour and 15 here, so we'll let you get on with your night. By the way, are you the last man standing in the press box?
The lights have been shut off. I see 2 groundskeepers on the field right now.
Is there anybody else still riding there? No, you're the only guy.
Right.
Nobody. What would you say? Okay, so you've covered this team for a few weeks now. Do you have an idea of what kind of access you're going to have to the players? Is it business as usual, and you're free to walk throughout the clubhouse like it was pre-pandemic, or are you still nope, the players talk here at this time, What's the layout for the media this year?
No, thankfully it's all back to normal. It's kind of funny.
Really?
Literally the
That's
last
cool.
time that there was open baseball clubhouses was the last time I was down here in Scottsdale a little over 2 years ago. And then I just took 2 years off doing a little COVID coverage, doing a little preps coverage, doing a little everything in between. And then I get back on the baseball beat and bam, they open up clubhouses. It's the only time that I mean, Larry, I'm in Arizona right now. It's the only time I've worn a mask I can remember. It's kind of a nice. I mean, it's so nice to be back in clubhouses and being able to just talk to guys, go out.
Oh, I bet. And then the background that you can get. See, people don't understand. Like, I always hated doing post game clubhouse. Why? Because it comes across like if the guy did something good and you're asking him about it, it's like, what are you, some freaking fanboy? It's like, ooh, you're great, And if somebody did something wrong, it's like it comes across like you're second guessing them, like you somehow think it's easy and that you're questioning the way they play the game. You know what I'm saying? So I never I really forget loved. I've always hated post game, but pre-game, I really loved pregame. You show up for a night game at like 1:00 in the afternoon, and that's 7 hours before the game, and everybody's low key, and you can talk to guys about whatever their fantasy football team. Their, Hunter Strickland and Madison Bumgarner sat down with me one day and were talking to me about how they love spring training. I'm like, why do you guys love spring training? I go, there's nothing to do at night in Arizona. And he's like, oh, no, man, we have a great time at night. And I'm like, do I dare follow up with a question here? I'm like, all right, guys, Hunter, what do you and Madison do at night in Arizona? And they both look at me and they look at each other. They start laughing and they're like, we hunt coyotes. And I said, what? You hunt coyotes? I'm like, both you guys are making over $1 million a year. You're hunting coyotes? And he's like, yeah, man. We just put a light on our head and you sit in a bush and you wait for some rustling and then you put the light on and you just shoot. And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds awful. He's like, you never hunted coyotes? I'm like, I'm from the Sunset District of San Francisco. I've never hunted coyotes. All right. But these guys were from Georgia or North Carolina or wherever they were from. And they loved it. I mean, that's what I love about pregame. It's like, you can get in there and you can start having conversations and it could be about anything. And guys let their hair down and they'll tell you. And it's not so much about you struck out. What happened? I want to know. Or, you hit a 3-run bomb. Talk about it. It's more about just like, hey, I'm a guy, you're a guy, it's hours before the game. Let's talk about some things that are important to you. Let's have some observations on the game. Let's get a couple opinions on what you heard on the radio, whatever. But I always love the pregame. Do you have where are you on do you like to get your work done pregame? Obviously you got to do both, but where do you sit pregame, postgame, and how you cover the team? What do you enjoy, I guess?
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Larry. I think pregame is
that's where it's at.
A pregame baseball clubhouse is like the best access there is in sports. I mean, it's all about relationship building, right? Like, I'm going up and talking to guys and I don't necessarily need quotes from them or anything, right? Like, I want them on the road, like, hey, I'm new here, right? Like, none of these guys know me. I want them to know me though, and I want them to trust me. I don't expect them to know my name or say hi to me or whatever, but I want them to like understand that I'm coming up to them and I'm going to responsibly use their words and my stories and have an informed, interesting discussion about whatever I'm writing about. So like, that's kind of the basis of clubhouses, right? And that's kind of what you weren't able to accomplish over Zoom the last couple of years, where it's just kind of business, all business, right? Like, you ask the question and then you go on mute and you maybe the guy sees your face, maybe they don't, but it's such an impersonal way to interact. And not only that, but just I understand that there have been some people who have benefited from decreasing the barriers to access over Zoom, but for the people who are out there doing the work in person, it really decreases the value of the work being there. And that's something that I really observed, especially on Warriors over the last few months, where it's so easy to get access to all of the availabilities over Zoom, that it leads to, even when there is open access and the ability to talk to folks in person, a lot of people just trying to kind of to do it over Zoom. And I don't think the players like it that much. Like, there's a reason why we're back in clubhouses, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we never thought we were going to get access restored. Like, once it gets taken away, it's very hard to get something back, especially something like that. And the league, I think the league wants press in there, right, to help promote the product. We always thought it was going to be we always thought it was going to be MLBPA pushing back against letting reporters back in the locker room. But every guy that we talk to, almost the first thing that they say is like, "Man, it's so nice to have you guys back in here. It's nice to see you after 2 years." Like, it streamlines the process. It helps build relationships. I mean, ultimately, like, especially, I mean, we're all just regular adults, right? Like, on one side of the coin, they play baseball for a living, and on the other, I write for a living. But we both, like, go home to families and friends and lives, and all that is fair game to talk about. And, like, we should be able to just build relationships with these guys, and then that is what leads to stories down the road, right? And that's how you get real insight about these players, rather than just, fantasy baseball names, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything's not about your on base percentage or your OPS, or there's so much more to it. And the Giants have a good group of guys, so it's like it's every clubhouse is a little different. It's funny, you go into the Yankee clubhouse, it's totally different than like you take one of the younger teams, the A's or the Marlins or one of these teams. It's a totally different experience. And it's every clubhouse has their identity. It's usually the leadership of the clubhouse. Whoever the best player on the team is kind of sets the tone. So for years it was Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent, and maybe Rich Aurelia that set the tone for the Giants. Now for years, I'm sure it was Buster and Crawford and Belt. Probably right now it's Crawford and Belt and maybe a couple other guys. But overall, I think the Giants have some terrific guys. Hey man, we really appreciate you rapping with us, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do this a few times throughout the year. And congratulations on the new gig, man. I'm sure you'll hammer it. Giants fans can't wait to read some of the insights that you have on the game and the team. Thanks for doing the late night duty with us from Scottsdale, and hopefully when the season starts, we're going to be doing these post games after every Giants night game. Maybe a few times we can get you on there and pick your brain on all things Giants. But man, congrats on the new gig, Evan, and welcome to the Bay Area as far as the Giants side of things is concerned. I know you've been here, but hammer it this year and have a great time doing it. And thanks for coming on the Krueg Show.
Thanks a bunch, Larry. Let's do it again. Let's make it a regular.
Absolutely. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too.
Evan Wiebeck, San Jose Mercury News. All right, we're going to continue on with some of the chats here, and we'll read some of the comments from all of you who wanted to get involved. And why don't we just go right down the line? I won't skip anybody here. Everybody wants to weigh in with their things. And believe me, if you have questions about, normally in a Cactus League game, there's not a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about, as far as the game itself tonight, because there's no strategy in Cactus League for the most part, right? Here's the strategy. Don't get freaking hurt. All right. Don't get hurt. That's your strategy. But I always like to see the comments, and we've got a bunch of people. This one from Sad Burrito. He says, Larry, are you in Scottsdale? Yeah. Can't you see right behind me at Scottsdale Stadium? It's like 12:30 in the afternoon. That's Scottsdale Stadium. I'm lit up outside Scottsdale Stadium. No, actually I'm in Walnut Creek, California, but I wish I was in Scottsdale, and I'm a huge fan of going to spring training. Okay. Okay. Let's get this one here. Jay Nubs. Love you, Krueg. All right, Jay. Well, I love you too, brother. Thanks for being part of this. And thanks for everybody who is part of this chat. We've got Tranman916. I immediately subscribed to you, Krueg, when I heard you were on YouTube. Thank you. I appreciate that. Go to the Krueg Show and subscribe. We already read this one before. I threw this one to Evan. He wants to trade for Jose Ramirez and Cedric Mullins. I'll say this. I don't know about those trades, the way you have them there listed there, but those two guys, Jose Ramirez and Cedric Mullins, those are two phenomenal players. I mean, Jose Ramirez can play second, he can play third, and he rakes. And he probably would be the best hitter on the Giants team if they got him right now. So I'm a huge Jose Ramirez fan. I can't believe Cleveland wants to move him. And I'll say the same thing about Baltimore and Cedric Mullins. Cedric Mullins plays center field. He's coming off a terrific year. Orioles have a $30 million payroll or whatever it is, and they want to get rid of that guy. I mean, seriously. And they didn't know they had Mike Yastrzemski in the minor leagues a few years ago. I mean, how bad are the Baltimore Orioles when they're absolutely garbage as a team? They had Yaz in the minors. We'll just cut him loose. We'll kick him to the curb. We don't need Yaz. So, I mean, it shows you the wisdom there. GTC Real says, wait till Larry gets the money on the super chats. We're going to have fun doing these post-game shows with the super chats, and we're almost there. I think you got to get to like 4,000 hours of listeners. And have 1,000 subscribers, and we have 1,000 subscribers. But please, if you have not subscribed, my 12-year-old told me, he said, Dad, he's like, only 38% of your audience is subscribed to you. I said, no, that can't be right. It's got to be a higher percentage than that. He's like, no, 38% of the people that have watched your videos in the last couple of weeks are subscribed. So that means there's an awful lot of people out there that haven't subscribed, and it takes freaking nothing. It's free. So please go to YouTube and subscribe. And if we can get enough hours, we will do the super chats throughout the summer. Oh, here's a good one. This is from Andrew Thompson. He says, looking forward to Krueg and Marty breaking down the G-Men some more. I love talking with Evan tonight, and he's awesome. But, man, the great Marty Lurie is, my favorite. So we'll definitely get with Marty. He says, I wish the Giants would add an outfield bat, a right-handed bat. I'm really kind of surprised that they didn't. I really thought with Buster moving on, with Chris Bryant moving on, that like a Nick Castellanos, for example, would have been a no-brainer. I know the Giants had a lot of interest in Seiya Suzuki, according to the reports I read, and it just didn't happen. I think there was a bunch of bidders. The Cubbies got him, I think, ultimately, and so that's just kind of I do expect the Giants to have add somebody in the outfield, but I also understand where Farhan's coming from. He's looking at Elliot Ramos going, okay, well, if you add another outfield bat, you've got only a certain number of spots. Does that mean that Ramos can't break north with the club? I'm sure Farhan, from talking to him through the years, he doesn't want to put any barrier in front of the young players that are, coming up through the system. So if him and the staff felt like Ramos has a chance to even go north with the club, they probably wouldn't want to, sign a veteran to block him in any way. So you heard Farhan mention second base, and that's why there was the Trevor Story rumors. Story ultimately went to Boston for $140 million. But I would expect the Giants may look at another, player. The name, I'll give you right now. I was looking at the list of free agents today, and people are saying, well, there's a bunch of good free agents out there. Don't you think the Giants should sign a few of them? The Giants have a pretty good looking roster, but here are 5 guys that, as of this morning, were all free agents. And in my opinion, I'd be kicking tires on all 5 of these guys. Yasmero Petit. Now, Ralph Godoy is his agent. Ralph's a good friend of mine. Went to high school together. But I love me Yasmero Petit. Man, I think Yasmero Petit is incredible. He doesn't throw hard. And he's a right-handed guy who pitches to contact, doesn't throw hard. He doesn't even watch film. He studies swing paths, and he pitches away from the swing path. I remember doing an interview with Yasmero, and he was telling me that. It sounded so simple. And the only other pitcher that I ever interviewed that told me that he doesn't like to watch film and that he pitches to guys by studying their swing path. You want to guess who it was? Greg freaking Maddux. And Yasmero Petit does the same thing. So they watch the swing path of the hitter, and they try to stay out of the sweet spots on the plate and try to stay out of that hitter's swing path. And it sounds simple, but not everybody can do it. A lot of guys prefer to just study film and watch cut up videos of at bats and study hitters that way and how to get them out. But Maddox told me he studies swing paths. Petit told me he studies swing paths, and I believe in it. I really do. So I love Yasmero. If the Giants could get him back as a long man, as a spot starter, I mean, I would trust him. I mean, we saw him in the playoffs. He's trustworthy as hell. I mean, this guy pitched huge for the Giants. Wasn't it like 6 or 7 shutout in that game that Belt won over the Nationals in the playoffs? Was it 2012, maybe 2012 playoffs? Belt went deep in like the 16th or whatever. And Yasmero pitched like 6 or 7 shutout innings of relief out of the bullpen. Now, granted, that's a long time ago, and guys get old. But and he was hit a little bit more last year. But man, I'm surprised the A's didn't bring him back. And Farhan, if you're listening, Yasmero Petit, I'd sign him up. Another guy who's out there who I can't believe is available is Tony Watson. Tony Watson came back to the Giants last year, throwing 95. And we all know what kind of guile he has, what kind of dude he is, how respected he is in the room. And I realized they got McGee and they've got Harleen Garcia and they've got Alvarez. They got lefties. They just lost Berriger today. But maybe losing Berriger would make them interested in Tony Watson. I just think when you have the game on the line and you can go to a guy like Tony Watson, who has been in every big moment and still is throwing mid-90s from the left side. I mean, once I saw that velocity ramp up to the mid-90s, Tony Watson is valuable. So absolutely, I'd like to see them bring in Tony Watson. I'll give you a couple outfielders. Kevin Pillar, who I'm a big Pillar guy. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a Pillar guy. And Michael Conforto. Both those guys with the Mets. Conforto turned down $18 million earlier this year at the beginning of the offseason. How stupid is that looking right now? But Conforto's out there, and he's got power, and he's still in his 20s. I'd be very happy with a Michael Conforto addition. And then Pillar had 15 jacks last year in 350 at bats. So, I mean, we're not even talking about a full year. He can play center, he can play left, he can play right. He's a great clubhouse guy. I like Pillar. And then the other guy that to me makes a lot of sense for the Giants is Jed Lowry. Jed Lowry last year had 14 home runs, 28 doubles, 69 RBIs in limited at bats. It wasn't a lot of at bats with the A's last year. So he didn't have a full season of at bats, and that's a lot of extra base hits. You're pounding out 28 doubles and 14 home runs and driving in 70, and you didn't play a full year. You rake. So I definitely like Lowry, and if the Giants could get a guy like that, think about Jed Lowry. He can play second, he can play third, he could DH. He probably could play, maybe left in a pinch. He could pinch hit off the bench. And the guy hit at Stanford. He's hit almost every stop he's had in the major leagues. He had a couple down years, but last year he kind of had a bounce back year, and he's a good guy. So, the thing that I'd read about Jed Lowry is that he had a sleep study done, and he wasn't sleeping, and he had some form of sleep apnea, and he got that cured, and his offense kind of took off from there. So that's interesting to me. That story really kind of caught my eye. But Jed Lowry, those 5 guys, Yasmero Petit, Tony Watson, Kevin Pillar, Michael Conforto. And if I had to guess one guy that I think Farhan may have some significant interest in, my guess would be Jed Lowry. All right, a couple more texts before we call it a night. We've got this one here from Jacob Orlov. He says, super stoked you're continuing your career on YouTube, Larry. The platform is the future, and I love listening to you on here. Well, we appreciate that, man. Absolutely. Kyle says you're going to bankrupt KMBR when this thing gets rolling. I don't think they need me for that. I think they can do that on their own. This one from Edison. He says, have you talked to Felipe Alou after what happened in 2005? Believe it or not, I did. I have talked to Felipe Alou. So we shook hands. We agreed that we should just move forward, and we did. So that's where that is. GTC Reels, bro, come on. That's very simple and to the point. One of my fraternity brothers from Sac State weighs in here. My man Jimmy Mole. He says we have ranted together many times, brother. Jimmy, I love you, man. I love you. Steven says, say what you want, Krug. All right. I'm saying what I want. Keep saying it. And Alex Orozco says, "Is Elliot Ramos a bust?" I don't think. I would say no. I would say no. I would say that baseball's really hard. There's been the pandemic. He's had some injuries, and conquering the different levels. Marty compares his physique to Willie Mays. Think about that for a second. And when you watch Ramos, I think last year he wasn't in great shape. This year he's lean. He's lean, and he's got great bat speed. And I would say of the Giant offensive prospects, he's probably as close to succeeding at the major league level as anybody. So I'm a Elliot Ramos fan. And are you a Michael Bolton fan? Yes, I am a Michael Bolton fan. That's from Office Space. Tranman 916 said 162 games of Giants post games. I'm pumped for Krueger commentary. I don't know about 162. We'll have to see about that, but definitely for the nighttime games. No KMBR post game shows. Watch this show. We'll bury that show. You know what? That's the plan. That is the plan, my friends. Sad Burrito says, Larry, can you get Gary on, please? Well, if you can, does he still have the Bentley? You know what? I don't know if G-Rad still has the Bentley. That's a great question. I don't know if G-Rad has the Bentley anymore. I hope he does. We have an update on the Bentley. GTC Reels says he sold the Bentley for a Mercedes. I don't think it's a Mercedes. I think Gary went Jag. I think he went Jag. So I think he went from Jag to Bentley back to Jag. I think that's if I'm keeping up on Gary's vehicles, that was it. Okay, we've got another one here from Sad Burrito, which says hit that subscribe button and like everybody. So there you go. Yeah, if you want to help out the show, we talked about it early on. Just hit the subscribe, and it's free to subscribe, and all that will do is just alert people as to when I'm on. And you can hit everything that we did. Like, give you an example. Today we talked to Mark Willard, our good friend Willard, who's at 95.7 The Game now. And you can check that out on YouTube. There's also you can check out the stuff on Spotify. But it was great to talk to him. And then Ned Coletti's going to join us later this week. Kate Scott is in town. That's right. Kate's gone on to bigger and better things. The Sixers get the Lakers, I think, on Wednesday, and the Clips on Friday, or maybe it's the opposite. So she's got an off day in between on Thursday. So Kate's going to join us on Thursday on here, and we'll pick her brain on. She's an incredible woman. She really is, and I loved working with her. Loved working with Gary, and she's awesome, and you guys all know it. And all I love about Kate is that she's just so real. She says what she thinks, and she thinks what she says. And she's getting breaks. She's now the voice of the 76ers, and good for her. Good for her. The one thing, I have a daughter. I have 3 sons and a daughter. And, the one thing that I like to be able to look my daughter in the eye and say, you know what, whatever the hell you want to do in this world, go out there and fucking do it. Do it. Don't sit there and worry about, oh, well, I can't and this and that. And there's not a lot of people who do, this, who are women. Break those walls down. We need to break those walls down. We need women doing, all these jobs that maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they didn't even dream of doing. They need to be doing them. Kate is awesome at play-by-play, and she's getting a great break covering the 76ers, and I'm sure she is hammering it. And I guarantee you the people of Philly appreciate her. Andrew Thompson says, how about Joey Barton, a pitching prospect for Jose Ramirez? Who's going to catch, Andrew? That would be my question. I get no problem with that. I would make that trade. I'm not tied to Joey Bart, and I think Jose Ramirez is, you get 2 years of club control at a really, really reasonable price. So, I would say that's, if you could get Jose Ramirez for Joey Bart and virtually almost any pitcher, I guess I wouldn't want to move the De La Salle kid. If I can keep Kyle Harrison, okay, if you tell me I can keep Kyle Harrison, but I can move Joey Bart and let's say another pitcher for Jose Ramirez, done. Yeah, absolutely a done deal. Kyle says, Don't forget to get a TikTok account. No, I don't see that happening. I don't see the TikTok. I definitely don't see that. Here we go. Sad Burrito says Farhan is a freaking genius. So the one thing about Farhan is he's got the world's greatest laugh, but he is incredibly bright. And it's what I always loved about interviewing him is if you asked him a tough question, he would give you an answer, and he didn't lie to your face. A lot of times he would tell you the truth. Somewhere in his answer would be the truth. It may be wrapped up. He may have hidden it under some other story, but he tells the truth a lot. And that would be my advice to anybody who's trying to discern, what he's going to do by the things that he says. He tells the truth a lot. Okay. Sad Burrito says Farhan is our savior. I don't know about that. Let's see. Famous Funk says, no one knew they were going to be as good as they were last year. Exactly. Vegas, Alex under here, Alex says Vegas had them at 85.5. I think he means this year. Giants are at 85.5 wins this year. I don't remember what they were last year. I don't remember. But it was nowhere. I think it was like 79.5. It might have been. It was between 79.5 and 83.5. And they won 107 games. Andrew Thompson, 107 games, beat out LA, the Goliath that is the Dodgers. And that's the beauty of baseball. You just don't know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know how the thing's going to play out. There could be injuries. We didn't see the whole thing happening last year with Trevor Bauer. Nobody could have envisioned that. Steve here says, what do you think the Giants' record will be this year? That's a good question, Steve. I would say, now, granted, we don't even know who's on the team. We don't know who they're going to trade for. We don't know if they're done signing free agents. But I would say if they won 107 last year, that was obviously an outlier. I would say they're going to go over 85.5. So if you pin me down right now, give me 88 wins right now. But if they get a Jose Ramirez, if they got any kind of a significant bat, or if a guy like Elliot Ramos came out of the minor leagues and showed that he was ready to be that bat, I could see him winning 90. I would say, to me, it seems like a team that might top out at 90. But the one thing about the Giants this year, they got great pitching. They got a lot of pitching. They got good pitching depth. And that's a big part of it. That absolutely is a big part of it. A couple of last ones before we say goodnight. Now you got people talking to other people in the chat. Edison says, sad Burrito, go Giants. Andrew Thompson says, bad news Bears, and they win. Okay. Here's a famous Funk quoting Moneyball. We'll make it up in the aggregate. I always think of that movie and I'm thinking, I knew Paul DePodesta. Paul DePodesta was like athletic. He was like, instead, the actor that played him was a fat guy. And then the guy, Art Howe he was also very athletic, and R.I.P. Philip Seymour Hoffman, but Philip Seymour Hoffman was not athletic. So it's like, you could see, the guys that Billy didn't like, he made unathletic in the movie. Let's go a couple more here. Romo 2001. He says, I agree with putting too much on prospects. I think Dave Henderson had a great quote about prospects. So, here's one right here. Michael Jimenez, Gary Brown. Gary freaking Brown. We'll have a night where we just talk about Giants prospects. I see your Gary Brown, and I raise you a Heath Hembry. Okay, I like that. I like that one right there. GTC Reels says, I played against Jesse Foppert 10 years ago in local baseball for amateurs. Let me just say this. I'm not gloating about Jesse Foppert. I think Jesse Foppert may coach at Marin Catholic or one of the schools in Marin. I don't know that I've met too many nicer people in the game than Jesse Foppert. He really is a good dude. He is. So, the fact I don't take anything out of the fact that that he didn't make it. He didn't make it. It's just some do, some don't, some will, some won't. For him, it just didn't happen. Sad Burrito. This is from Hella This, Hella That. He says, Larry meant to say Ramirez. We all know he liked. That's right. I mentioned Martinez before. I was a huge fan of Jose Martinez, who was a very good hitter. I went to a game a couple years ago where it was like first inning, he hit an absolute 2-iron shot into like 5 rows down from the glove and left center. So Jose Martinez rakes, but he signed to play in the Mexican League. So, obviously that means that he didn't have any opportunities in the major leagues. Andrew Thompson says, how many 4A guys did they have for a while tearing up AAA but couldn't make the show? Man, if you're a Giants fan, you know all about that. This is a great name. G-Don says Tom O'Malley was a bust. Oh, my God. Remember, Tom O'Malley was a Giant prospect, another guy hitting 380 at AAA. And I think AAA at the time might have been Fresno. And then Tom O'Malley just came up, and he was like a heartthrob. The girls loved him. He was a kind of a smiley face, cute guy. Everybody loved him. But he couldn't run, and he had no power. So that was the Giants back in the day. They had these guys with no tools, no speed, no power. Couple last ones here. Jimmy weighing back in, definitely overachieved, but still legit. He's talking about, I'm sure, last year. A couple last ones here. This is interesting. Matthew Mears, no Buster will really show this year. I hope you're wrong. But Matthew, we all know you're right. I mean, Buster, the genius of Buster was in the game calling, and his impact was more on the pitching staff than as a hitter. And he was the Giants' best hitter against velocity. You had somebody throwing mid-90s. Buster was the guy that would have a hard hit shot off him. I did an interview with Bruce Bochy after the 2000. I guess it was 2014 World Series. About a couple days after that, I'm at Oracle Park walking around. Jim Moorhead's like, hey, you want to talk to Bruce? I'm like, do I want to talk to Bruce? Yeah, I'll talk to Bruce. He's like, yeah, you can do a one-on-one with Bruce in his office. I'm like, you got to fucking be kidding me. You're going to give me a one-on-one with Bruce in his office? He's like, yeah, he's hanging out, and he doesn't mind. And I mentioned it to him. He said he's cool with doing it. I'm like, oh, that is so cool. So I go in there. I'm like, Bruce, I can't believe that you're letting me do a one-on-one, but I appreciate it. And we get into the World Series, the 3 World Series in 5 years. And I said, Bruce, you played, catcher, obviously you played your backup catcher a lot, through the years. But if you go and look at those 3 World Series runs, 10, 12, and 14, you played Buster every freaking inning of every game. Why? And he said, because I have a level of trust with Buster. He said he's a genius play caller. He's a genius pitch caller. I have total confidence in him handling my staff and handling anything that comes up in the game. And I don't want to have one inning of postseason baseball where he's not in the crouch for me. And when he said that, it just illustrated, Bruce was a catcher. So he knew, he knows catching, and he knows catchers. And for him to say that about Buster, it was just so revealing. And I just never forgot that he, Bruce himself held Buster in such high regard as a catcher. And he just didn't want anybody else besides Buster catching Giant playoff games. So I think that's really, really interesting. A couple last ones. Romo 2001 sounded like Matos made some outstanding catches tonight. He did. He made a catch in, I would say, straightaway center, diving catch, showed a lot of range, got a ton of bat speed as well. So Matos looks really, really good. This one's Sad Burrito. I've read like 10 texts from him, but he says, wait, I thought Kerry Crowley was doing the Bay Area newspaper group. Kerry's not doing the beat writing stuff this year, and he put out a tweet the other day that he's having some health problems. So, Kerry, we love you, brother. Another guy, really good dude. Saying Nation's Wildcat, go Cats, get them Cats, go get them Cats. I love Kerry Crowley, and Kerry, I hope everything is going good for you health wise, and we'll say a prayer for your brother because we love you. You did a great job covering this team, and can't wait to hear you, whether it be on KMBR or see in the paper or wherever. Just a good dude who knows a lot about baseball. And I think you're still going to hear him doing weekend stuff with Marty Lurie. And a couple last ones here. Matthew Mears says, I really trust Farhan. He knows what he's doing, so there is hope. I think, ultimately that's really what it comes down to. You got to trust Farhan. GTC Real says, tell your daughter's friend to do radio on YouTube. Radio is dead. Yeah. Well, I don't know about radio being dead, but we're happy to be over here on YouTube. Okay. Here we go. Andrew Thompson says, can't wait to pay $20 for an IPA and the smell of garlic fries. There is something, though, about those garlic fries. And we'll get into it some night about what's the best things to eat on the at the stadium. The crab sandwich was incredible. I've currently got one on layaway. I'm paying half now and half at the end of the year, just for my budget. But that's really good. The cha-cha bowls are really good. And then, who doesn't want a IPA tall boy at the game? And the garlic fries. Let me give you my RIP Razor garlic fries story. When I first came to KMBR, Ralph's doing the afternoon show with Tommy, and I'm doing the nighttime show. And Ralph would order garlic fries at the Giants game, like in the ninth, put them in a paper bag and bring them back to the studio at KMBR. And it just stunk up the whole goddamn studio with his garlic fries. And it'd be like, hey, Ralph, can I get a garlic fry? And he wouldn't let you have one. And then it just absolutely reeked like garlic fries. You put those Gordon Biersch garlic fries in a brown paper bag. Oh my God. I mean, it's just like, it's the strongest aroma of all time. But the late Ralph Barbieri, who I loved like a brother, Razor, fist in the air. Love you, brother. But get those garlic fries out of the goddamn studio. G Don says, Larry, get Dino Costa on the show. That's the second person in the last couple of days who was asked about Dino Costa. So I used to do a show on Mad Dog Radio called Overnight or Overtime on Mad Dog Radio. Dino Costa, I believe, took over the show for a few months after I was off that show. I don't really know Dino Costa, but I know he gets kind of political, which the one thing you'll never hear me do on talk radios, I don't go political. Not because I don't have political thoughts, because nobody gives a shit. I don't care about your political thoughts, and you shouldn't care about mine. And I don't want to talk politics, and I don't want to listen to anybody talking politics. And these guys who talk sports, but then try to like segue their political views in there and trying to usually play to an audience that they thinks either along with them. Those guys need to go to hell. Seriously, I hate people who take sports radio and talk politics. If you want to be on KGO, go be on KGO. If you want to be, Sean Hannity, go be Sean Hannity. But if you're in the sports side of things, geez, man, just talk a little sports, right? Just talk a little sports. Sad Burrito asks if Evan was in Scottsdale. Yeah, he was at Scottsdale Stadium tonight. So he was there watching the game in person. Tyler Beatty to the Rangers for a right-handed bat. I don't know about that. Sean Jelly reminds me of a Chris Young type. That's kind of an interesting comparison. Chris Young, talking about the former Ivy Leaguer, played for the Padres and I think the Rangers and a couple other teams. One question here about Seth Corey. What about Seth Corey? How do the Giants feel about his ups and downs? That's a weird one, right? Because Seth Corey was picked off. He's a young pitcher in the Giants system with a live arm. And he was picked off in the Rule 5 draft before the lockout, I believe. And then they canceled the Rule 5 draft and basically returned all those guys to their original clubs. So Seth Corey, who was taken in the Rule 5 draft, is now back with the Giants. I don't know how they feel about him. He's kind of stalled out a little bit. So I'd have to, that will be next time we get like, one of the Giants minor league guys, the farm director, Kyle Haynes, will be a good guy to ask about that. I'll get Kyle on here in the next couple of weeks. He is one of my very favorite guys, Kyle Haynes. And he knows everything about the minor leagues. And I'll ask him about Seth Corey and how the Giants view Seth Corey. Matthew Mears has a question about James Wiseman. I don't know. We're switching gears here. James Wiseman, just unfortunate bad luck. His injury was the same way. Klay Thompson got hurt. It's too bad. I think Wiseman's done. That knee's done. Is he done? What do you mean done? Done? How can he be done? He didn't even start yet. The guy played 3 games in college and he's done? He better not be freaking done. Oh, my God. I'll say this about Wiseman. No Wiseman, I don't think the Warriors have a chance to win the title. We're going to talk a lot with my buddy Cyrus Satsis, who does the Locked On Warriors podcast on David Locke's Locked On Network. And we're going to talk to Cyrus. We'll be doing some post games off of Warrior playoff games as well, talking a lot of Warrior basketball because, as you guys know, I am a huge Warrior fan. Giants, Niners, Warriors, those are my teams for the most part. Couple last ones before we get out of here. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this, but the texts never go away. Farhan picks up value in pitchers very well. Hitters, not quite as well yet. Hope he trades for Jose Ramirez. I kind of would agree with that. I think that's a good comment right there. This one, piggybacking my comment on Blandino, says Alex Blandino will be the right-handed bat for second base. You know what? That would not shock me. Would not shock me at all. If Blandino, who can play second, play third, wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden he winds up being a key cog at second. Sad Burrito says, Larry, will you collab with Grant Napier on YouTube? Well, you know what? When I went to Sac State, Grant Napier, I did an internship. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do and that kind of thing. And Grant treated me really, really well. And nobody got a more of a raw deal than Grant Napier. My God. That guy got a terrible run in Sacramento. I'll just say this. There's lots of people that talk about people and they don't know him. Heck, they never met the guy. For all that, they don't know 2 shits about Grant Napier and they're sitting there bad-mouthing the guy. I know the guy, okay? I know the guy and I know the guy's a good guy. And so I'll gladly stand up for my friends all times. If you're my friend for life, and I'll stand up and defend you. And I like Grant Napier and he's a good dude. And there's nothing wrong with him. So the fact that he got screwed in Sacramento and that his partner didn't stand up for him, it's shameful, in my opinion. Carlos De La Fuente says, you mellow out as you age when you graduate from SH and a guy on the radio is from SI and a guy and like a guy on the radio from SI. Carlos, there you go. Go Cats, get them Cats, go get them Cats. I have to say it, SH, you're phony. We got the Bruce Mahoney. But, Carlos, I do that in 100% loving fashion. I hope Farhan gets the rest of the A's. Good players, please. Are the Giants banking on the fact that they think Yaz will return to 2020 form? I hope Yaz returns to 2020 form. The Giants farm system, Jimmy Mole. I got to put Jimmy's face back on there. Jimmy, look at you, man. You got a picture. You got the hat going, the whole deal, the beard. You look you look like Fidel Castro right there. But it's Jimmy Mole says SF Giants farm system is ranked 11th by ESPN, adding FWIW for what it's worth. I think that's when I was, most of the time I've been a Giants fan, the Giants farm system has been ranked like 25th or lower. To see them ranked in the top half of the league is really incredible. So we've got Fable JVC says, I'm jealous of Evan's hair also. Yeah, Evan had some great lettuce, as Dennis Eckersley would say. Matthew Mears, I'd like to see some young stars on this team. Giants are really old right now. I think Farhan would agree with that. I think he would like to see some young players on that team as well. So easier said than done. They do have a deeper farm system they've had in the past. As far as, you don't want guys who are too young, but you don't want a team full of guys 30, 33 plus. So, that's how that goes. And do we have any at the bottom here? Let's see. This is kind of a good one. Randy 415. Ramos would have played football if he grew up in the States. I don't know about that. Steven Ortega. Krueger, is Joey Bart going to be our catcher? I would say yes. Bailey's not ready. Auerbach has never played over A-ball. Casali is not a good offensive player. I would say yes. I'd say Bart's the guy, but you know what? Put that in pencil, not pen. Ruben Pena says, love the new show, Larry. I do as well. Thanks, Ruben. I appreciate that. Jimmy says, Larry, you had Ramos in your home run competition with Willard. Whatever happened with that one, brother? I beat Willard in that bet, and then Willard switched radio stations and still hasn't paid me. But he owes me a round of golf, and we're going to get our kids out there. We'll film it. Willard stole my dog's name as well. I should be bitter about that. I named my dog Penny. Literally, I talked about the dog all the time on the freaking show. He gets a dog. He names his dog Penny. Okay. All right. I mean, should I be bitter? I'm just joking. I'm not joking. It's actually true. Mine's a golden retriever. His is a German Shepherd. We both have dogs named Penny. Clarence Beeks. Does anybody know what the Clarence Beeks reference is? That is that asshole from Trading Places who he's on the payphone and the woman comes up. Or no, he wants to use the phone and a woman's on a payphone. He's like, "Get lost, maggot." Anyway, Clarence Beeks was the guy that framed Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places. Great reference there. GTC Reels says, Larry never hunted coyotes, but he can throw a rolled up examiner right on your front step with perfection. Thank you. You've summed me up perfectly. Matthew Mears, 2 questions, Larry. What do you think about the DH in the National League this year? And should they keep the ghost runner on second and extra innings? I hate the ghost runner. I absolutely hated that. I mean, let's just take baseball, which is an awesome game that's been around since like 1870, and let's just put a runner on second because, beat writers have to get home. I mean, what? All the baseball games I've ever gone to in my life, I don't ever remember walking out thinking to myself or hearing anybody else say, man, if only that game were shorter. I mean, I get it. Like Yankees Red Sox playoff games or Yankee Red Sox regular season games go 4 hours. It's a little much. I get that. But I seriously, when I go to a baseball game and it's 2 hours and 10 minutes, I feel cheated. I'm like, I don't like that. I'd rather watch a 3.5 hour baseball game than a 2 hour and 10-minute baseball game. I want more entertainment for my buck. And you know what? Baseball. I mean, sports are expensive as hell. I mean, it's incredible what people pay for tickets and for food and for everything at major league sporting events. NBA is expensive, MLB is expensive, NFL is expensive. I want more entertainment. I want more action. I want more hitting. I want more dunking. I want more offense. I want more. I don't want less. So I'm definitely, as far as DH in the National League, that's tough. I don't like the DH in the National League, but you know what? I'll grudgingly accept it. I mean, I heard Krueg and Flem talking about it, and they're talking about how pitchers can't really hit anymore. I don't think pitchers ever really could hit, but I mean, there's always a few: Babe Ruth, Tim Lawler, Don Robinson, Alan Watson. I mean, there's been a few pitchers that can hit, but for the most part, pitchers can't hit. It's not even about whether or not pitchers can hit. It's about different styles of the game. It's about setting your lineup in the American League at 4:00 in the afternoon and not having to do anything. You could go in the clubhouse and have a sandwich. Where in the National League, you have to make adjustments, and you might have to pull a double switch. And there's just different nuances to the National League brand of ball. But I guess we're in this era. I will say this: there's not enough action in the game. There's not enough athletes in the game. And there's not enough happening on the field right now. So there's too much of the strikeout, the walk, and the home run. And we're not getting enough triples and doubles and athletes and steals and action. So because of that, I guess if you want to compensate by throwing the DH in the National League, I guess I understand it. And I guess I would say because I'm a fan of more action, I can grudgingly accept the DH in the National League. But think about it. Last year, we had both styles of baseball, and this year we have one. Does that make baseball more interesting? I don't think so. I thought it was more interesting that when we had multiple styles. So this one here, Famous Funk, any chance you get Rod Brooks to stop by one of these days. I can text him. See if Rod would be up for it. Herbal Heals. Is that right? Am I reading that right? It says late night Krueger. I dig it. There you go. Back doing the late night stuff. Sad Burrito says hit that thumbs up and hit the bell. Subscribe too if you like what you see. Look at you, Sad Burrito. Put you on the freaking payroll. Okay, let's see. A couple more here. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. Larry, I spoke to Pence and Romo on Twitch. They said something interesting. Okay. And I'm gonna need to see more of that comment before, otherwise I don't know what you're getting at there. This one from GTC Reels. Greg Maddux was awesome. Mike Maddux, not so much. Pretty good though when you have two brothers who both pitched in the big leagues. I mean, think about that. I mean, if you're a dad and you got both your sons to the big leagues. I got a kid who plays JV ball at Northgate High School, and I mean, he's going to play tomorrow. And I love watching my kids play. My older son played at Northgate. My kid now is a sophomore, so he's playing JV ball. John Lund's kid plays varsity ball over there. And I got a 12-year-old who's probably going to wind up being a pretty good player as well. I love watching my kids compete in sports, man. I mean, there may not be a better thing in life than watching your kid compete in sports. What else? We got anything else that's good here? Time to jet. Let's see. A couple last ones here. Larry, tell Jed Lowry to get a Sleep Number bed. Do you still sponsor them? No, I don't. I don't sponsor the Sleep Number anymore. For the moment. That could change. That all could change. And this one, Larry going to get revenge on KMBR by doing post-game SF Giants. I would listen to you instead, unless it's Marty Baseball Jesus. So Marty, then me? Is that what you're saying, Sad? It's you prefer Marty, but if then I'm second. Oh man. Sad says my effing ears, Larry the profanity. Sorry, hey, I'm on YouTube. You can't swear on radio. I just figure I'd dust it off for you. Here's a good one. Larry, what's your World Series predictions? Mine is the Toronto Blue Jays against the Padres. Well, first of all, that ain't happening. I mean, I'll tell you that right now. The Padres aren't winning shit. And that's SHIT, and tell Chris Townsend I said it. They're not winning. Padres are not winning. What's your division winners in Major League Baseball in general? As far as World Series, by the way, I don't have a pick yet. Give me some. I need more time. I need to see. I need to look at charts. I need to study graphs. I need to have a couple beers. I need to do a deep dive before I can give you my World Series pick. But as far as I kind of would love to see Giants Red Sox. How cool would that be? Giants Red Sox? That to me would be incredible. You go into Will Clark Day or any Giants home games or away games? Oh, you kidding me? I'll go a bunch of times this year. I like to go like 3-4 times a year and sit, like 3-4 times a year, like night games, and then like 3 or 4 times a year in the daytime. So yeah, I mean, I love going out to the game. There's nothing better than going out to the game. What else? Not reading that one. Not touching that. Okay, let's hit this one. Romo 2001. Larry, keep up the great work on YouTube. I always enjoyed listening to you on the radio. Your commentary and guests have been excellent. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And you know what? We're going to do a lot. We're going to be doing a lot on YouTube, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So this is a good one. Sad Burrito. Larry, would you consider going to KHTK as a guest host or a guest? I would say no. Though my brother is a Sacramento guy. My brother, the judge, he's living up in Natomas. So, I can never say no to anything. I would never close the door on anything, but I'm not looking to move back to Sacramento. Though I do love going to Sac State. Go Hornets. Bzz, bzz. That's for the Hornets. Sad Burrito. Trade for Wilson Contreras. All right. You know what? Wilson Contreras is an interesting idea. That is an interesting idea for sure. Because Wilson Contreras is in Chicago. Giants and Cubs already made a couple, moves. Wilson Contreras would be interesting. He's in his prime. If you don't trust Joey Bart, or let's say maybe Farhan thinks Joey Bart's gotten some more, seasoning that's needed, I could see a trade involving Wilson Contreras. Contreras seems like the Cubs are willing to part with him. He's a good offensive player, pretty good defensive catcher, in the prime of his career. Giants are looking to win right now. Steven Ortega says, Larry, Albert Pujols, do you see him as a Giant? He could be our DH. I would probably say no. I mean, I remember talking to Tommy last year, and he was like, "Oh man, Albert Pujols is no good anymore." But then he went to LA and was pretty good. So that one's interesting. I mean, I Albert Pujols, if in the right situation, but I mean, you're gonna take a roster spot for a guy who can't run and really can only be your DH and only be a part-time first baseman. Steven says, Larry, Grant Cohn, I like him. He's funny. I think Grant gets a bad, people who are anti-Grant Cohn, come on, man. Grant's a good guy. He absolutely is. All right, that does it for us. That is going to do it. It was a 2-hour and 10-minute show. We did post-game from right around 10 o'clock, I think maybe 9 something, maybe 10. It was roughly, I guess it was right, must have been right around 10 o'clock to 12:27 a.m. So if you are checking this out for the first time, we are going to be doing post games on Giants baseball. So, the Giants game ends as soon as the last pitch comes in. Jump on over to YouTube, and we'll be chatting. We'll have a little mechanism up here. We'll be able to take some of your phone calls coming up here in the days ahead, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. There's gonna be a lot of baseball people that are gonna join me. I just wanted to have the Giant beat writer on tonight. One, because I didn't know him, and I was told he was a really good dude, and he was a good dude. I mean, seriously, Evan hung out for an hour and 20 minutes talking Giants baseball and answering questions. Very cool. Now, I don't think he's going to do that every time, but he's going to be on from time to time. We'll try to get other people on as well. Ned Coletti is said that he's going to stop by, so that alone will be really cool, especially when the Giants play the Dodgers this year. Being able to sit there with the former Giant assistant GM, former Dodger GM, and break down all the drama that the Giants Dodgers has with a guy as knowledgeable as Ned is a thrill. That is absolutely a thrill, and one of the real positives of being able to do these post game shows and chats is that Ned's going to be there for a number of them. It sounds like, if he's got time, and we're going to love having his expertise, and you guys will love being able to kind of toss questions towards me and Ned, and get our reactions. So, all right, that's done. That's it for the night. Thanks to everybody who participated. Thanks to Len Dempsey for setting this up. Thanks to Evan from the San Jose Mercury News. We will be back tomorrow. In fact, later this week, let me just give you an idea of some of the things we got going later this week. We are going to have Kate Scott on. We're going to have Ned Coletti on. We're trying to chase down John Middlecoff to talk a little NFL draft, a little bit about NFL free agency. The Jimmy Watch is still going on. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Niners in the days ahead. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Akash Avaranthan. And if I butchered Akash's last name, Akash, I apologize. But he's going to join us. He does a 49er podcast. He's going to join us tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. We'll talk all things Niners with him. And then Vish is going to join us, Vish Kumaran, on. And if I butchered Vish's last name, Vish, I apologize. But he'll join us Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we're going to talk a little Niners with Vish. And we're going to just have a lot of fun talking to a number of people that I want to talk to, talking a lot about the Giants, the Niners, the Warriors, the draft, and we'll mix in a bunch of other things as well. And one last one here. Let's thank our sponsor one more time here. Let's see if I can get this sponsor logo up here one more time. I usually am better at this, but there we go. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, wait a second. We go back to the comments, get rid of the other comments, and then we will call it a night. All right. Well, thanks to our guests, our sponsors, I should say, the Good Guys 38th All-American Get-Together. It's coming up this weekend, and you can see it on the screen there. It's March 26th and 27th at the Alameda County Fairgrounds in Pleasanton. It's the, what they call America's favorite car show. There'll be 3,000 American-made and powered hot rods, muscle cars, and trucks, on display. They'll have the Nitro Thunderfest, the indoor lowrider exhibition, and who will win the Good Guys Fuel Curve Custom of the Year contest. And for all the information, you can go to their website, good-guys.com, to register your ride, get tickets, or just get more details on the Good Guys 38th All-American Get-Together this weekend at the Pleasanton Fairgrounds in Pleasanton, California. All right, that does it for us. See you tomorrow on The Krueg Show on YouTube, and check us out on Spotify and hit subscribe. Have a great night, everybody.